The year is 1941. Hitler and his army are quickly overtaking European defenses, using blitzkrieg tactics, or lightning war. The innovative and extremely effective approach depended on the collaboration of multiple elements of combat. Any opposition was left in shambles. Poland had fallen quickly under German attack that begun the war, and France had been under German control since June of 1940. Even in Great Britain, now alone in the fight against German advances, is beginning to weaken under the pressure. The Soviet Union, protected from the German advances by the Nazi-Soviet Non-Aggression Pact, lays in a false state of security. Driven by his lust for power, Hitler urges his army onward. Who is safe from this voracious force, and who, if anyone, has the power to stop it?
My father, General Zinoviev, was an honorable man.
A luminary in the Russian ranks, Zinoviev was an ardent follower of Russia's tyrannical leader, Joseph Stalin, the very man that would one day voice the orders for his murder.
I remember at 6 years old peeking into my father's study. The scars on his face had terrified me. They were unusual and ugly. I knew that he was powerful. You could just feel it by the way others acted around him, especially my father. He had the utmost respect for Stalin, reverent almost, but even that sort of intense loyalty didn't keep my father safe. Stalin had him killed, my mother too. I didn't understand then, but he was scared. He could never trust anyone.
Stalin, his face scarred by smallpox in his childhood, was a man obsessed with appearance. Images depicting him as strong and resolute are only what he wanted people to see. In truth, behind those dark eyes was a storm of nervous paranoia. He was suspicious of even his most devout followers. This drove him to sanction multiple purges, which, in the end, would lead to the deaths of 15 out of every 16 of his generals.
You didn't say anything against Stalin. It was suicide. Hitler, too. Stalin had this uncharacteristic devotion to Hitler. Any offense to Hitler would be an offense to Stalin. But even in the end, even my father's loyalty wasn't enough for him. Stalin was a madman. He was the cause of so many deaths. Okay.
In all, the number of Russian generals and commanders killed in the purges outnumbered those of World War II. The Soviet failure to conquer Finland in 1939 was only a sample of the consequences of these purges that would inflict on the Russian forces. The Winter War is one of the primary reasons that Hitler invaded the Soviet Union. In 1939, Stalin's forces invaded Finland for no reason other than to prove their military might. However, this plan backfired. The Soviets suffered a terrible defeat, even though their troops and supplies outnumbered the Finnish exponentially. This proved to Hitler that he could invade and take Russia with ease.
When the Soviets failed to conquer all of Finland, we were rather surprised. It was pathetic, a joke really. How in the world did the Soviet Union not overtake Finland? The Finnish army was barely half the size of the Soviets, and their equipment was barely to standard. It was a foolish move for Stalin. That was what gave Hitler the confidence to invade Russia. He thought it would be an easy victory.
Despite the non-aggression pact between the two nations, Hitler turned his attention to the Soviet Union with a new aggressive ambition. Seeing the Soviet Union as prey, he eyed the vast territory which could provide his growing armies with much-needed oil. How could such a weak nation stand against the powerful German forces? June 22, 1941. 3 separate factions of the German army crossed the Russian border, breaking the Nazi-Soviet non-aggression pact that Stalin had considered a strong tie between the two nations. Each army had clear orders. The North Army, a total of 20 divisions along with the Luftwaffe 1 as support, were destined for Leningrad. The Central Army, headed for the capital city of Moscow, had a total of 51 divisions with a Luftwaffe 2. Lastly, the South Army, with a total of 40 divisions with Luftwaffe 6, and the additions of 14 Romanian divisions and Hungarian Army Corps, was targeting Stalingrad.
We were all shocked after hearing of the invasion, but it was unmistakable that they were here to fight. The German army crowded our borders and special intelligence agents reported clear. People had tried to warn Stalin that Hitler would turn on him if it meant he could gain something. Stalin wouldn't hear of it. Even when the evidence was overwhelming, he refused to prepare for war, and if you wanted to keep your life, you didn't complain.
What?
Stalin,
Yes?
it's been a week. You've been in your room for a week. Don't you think you should command your army?
Why? How could you betray me?
It doesn't matter. We have to counterattack. Shouldn't we use our army? Don't you want to come out?
Go away.
Stalin?
Not yet.
Stalin?
What?
Don't you want to come out?
No.
Okay.
Those first few days were hell. We all knew that our people were being slaughtered. We all knew that with each day we lost in preparation, the Germans continued to advance. But we did nothing. We couldn't. We feared for our lives. Stalin wouldn't kindly take to insubordination, so none of us dared to make the order to mobilize.
With no one to oppose Hitler and his army, the German army was quickly advancing 20 miles a day. In the matter of 6 days, the German army had crossed 400 kilometers. However, their advancement was slowed after Stalin had decided to take control of the army.
Why? Why would you betray me? You're my best friend. I trusted you. Why? It's time to work.
When Stalin finally emerged from that room, everything had changed. I remembered having this great joy knowing that our leader of the great Soviet Union was not defeated. It was not just I who felt this way. All of Russia was wrapped in this universal anger and patriotism. These Germans, who are they to invade our homeland? Who are they to break our pact and look down at Russia? This was truly a war that united all of Russia together, the Great Patriotic War.
Stalin completely reformed the Russian army upon regaining his senses. Fight to the death. That was the motto he forced onto his army. Any generals that considered the option to retreat were silently executed by Stalin. Under this new battle tactic, the German advancement had slowed. In less than 2.5 months after their initial attack, the German forces had reached Leningrad, the northernmost point of attack. By September 8, 1941, they had completely surrounded the city. Now modern St. Petersburg, Leningrad lay between the Baltic and Ladoga Sea. This made the city an easy target for the German siege.
During the blockade, supplies and general necessities were slowly taken from us. By the time that winter came, there was no heater, water supply, nearly no electricity, and very little food. That winter felt especially cold.
There were nearly 3 million civilians in the city at the beginning of the siege, including about 400,000 children. Refusing to surrender, they endured rapidly deteriorating conditions.
I remember it was that 1st January, and the food rations were down to 125 grams of bread per person per day. That was only a month into the siege. There were already bodies lying in the street. They were dying of cold and starvation.
In only the 2 months of January and February, 200,000 people died in Leningrad of cold and starvation. But despite the inhumane conditions and mass deaths, the war industries within the city continued to work and they refused to surrender.